made, we should rejoice and be glad. It is good. It is good to be in the land of the living. I am filming Bible study. I'm here doing Bible study. I am in Columbus. I'm in Columbus, Ohio, attending to Senior. He sends his love. And before I started recording, he ran out. So y'all make sure y'all get him for running out. But it is just good to be. Just good to be alive. I wanted to jump in right in on tonight because I know you all are busy. I know you have a lot that's going on. So I wanted to deal with managing your emotions. Have you ever went into your home and you walked into your house and your husband had choice words for you? And you ask yourself the question, what in the world? And you're asking yourself, what did I do to deserve this? And they're still going on, and they're verbally coming at you. And you're like, what? You know what? One more thing. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you're at work and you know that as you're at work and you're simply trying to do your job, there's somebody that's in the cubicle next to you, and every time you get up to go to the bathroom, they have to announce it as if they're trying to alert the supervisor that you're doing something that's illegal? I'm asking you these questions because oftentimes we can be put in situations that mess with our emotions. And I don't want to be on here long on tonight, but I really want to dig into this. Sadly, we have people who will try our emotions. They'll push us into a corner. And when it comes to our emotions, there's nothing wrong with having emotions. But the problem is that for many of us, we don't know how to express them. So when we talk about managing your emotions, if you're writing something down, if you're typing on tonight, type down emotional control. Emotional control. Many people, because they have not been able to control their emotions, many people are on death row. Many people, because they can't control their emotions, they act out in a way that is counterproductive of them actually controlling their emotions. We have people who have put themselves in horrible predicaments because they have not been able to literally control their emotions. The Bible talks about emotional intelligence all the way through. It may not necessarily say watch your emotions, but it talks about how you guard your heart, because your heart is connected to your emotions. And we're going to deal with that in a little bit. But before we dig into anything, let's go into Proverbs. Proverbs chapter 29. Proverbs chapter 29. This is a little mini Bible study on tonight, and we will resume. Pretty soon, because on next Wednesday, the 15th, I will be preaching for the Delaware Baptist State Convention for their conference, kicking off their conference on the 15th of May. So let's dig into this. Proverbs 29 and 11. It says, "A fool vents all his feelings, but a wise man holds them back." Now, this is Solomon. Solomon is talking to his son. He's basically saying that a foolish person vents all of his feelings, but a wise man holds them back. The best way I can illustrate this is that when we look on social media, there are individuals on social media that vent everything on social media. And I'm saying this because social media has turned many people into keyboard gangsters. While we're on the keyboard, we say a lot of things, and we can type up a lot of stuff, and we can suggest a lot of stuff and say this and say that. So when we talk about being able to vent, there's a certain way that we vent, but we should not get to the point where we have to vent and insult people. We don't get to the point where we vent and then we cause more damage than what we already have. And I'm saying this because what happens is that when he says this, he says a fool vents all of his feelings. That suggests that sometimes it's good not to say anything. Put that in your notes. Sometimes it's good not to say anything. And as he's advising him here, he's saying that there are some situations where people are going to push you to that corner. People are going to push you to that place in life where you feel that if I cuss them out, I'll feel better. The reality is that you will feel better. But in the same token, you're putting yourself on display. And write that down. When you make a public display, you put yourself on display. When you make a public display, you put yourself on display. And because many people have no problem putting themselves on display, at the moment when it's happening, you don't care about the display. At the moment when it is transpiring, you don't care about anything that's going on. You want your point to be proven. You want your anger to be expressed, and you don't think about the consequences. And I tell people all the time, you can't do whatever you want to do, but there are consequences behind you doing what you do. But also on the flip side, because people have not been able to control their emotions, they're laying 6 feet deep. You got so mad at a person that you had to cuss and you had to put your hands on them. And then when the person responded, now, they've unalived you. I can't say that word because we're live and we're on YouTube and Facebook. But many people have suffered the consequences of them not being able to handle their emotional control. So here he's basically saying that you have to get to the point where you do not vent everything out, but you have to learn how to hold some things in. Now, I'm not saying that if somebody makes you that mad where you just have to walk away. You have to learn the power of emotional control, because people have become unemployed because they haven't controlled their emotions. People have been punched in the mouth because they have not controlled their emotions. And I'm saying it in this way tonight because I do not want to come from the context of, well, the Bible say that if thou gets angry, thou should not. No, we're talking real life principles. We're talking reality. We're talking about when you're willing to lose your salvation because someone has hurt you or broken you. No, you have to learn the power of control. And how we deal with control of our emotions is that we have to realize that we have dominion. Type that in your notes. Type dominion. Type dominion. We're going to go. To Genesis in a moment, but type in dominion. So when we talk about dominion, in Genesis chapter 1, better yet, let's go. Genesis chapter 1. Genesis chapter 1, verses 26 through 28. But I'm only going to read verse 26. Somebody put that in the notes. Genesis chapter 1. Then God said, let us make man in our own image and our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish of the sea, the birds in the sky, the livestock, and all the wild animals, and over the creatures that move along the ground. And it says, so God created them. So basically, listen to what he says. He says, I'm creating you to tend to the garden. I need for you to have complete control over everything that I have put you over. So if I've given you dominion over all of this, I need for you to have dominion, authority over all of this. The same way that God tells Adam and Eve to have dominion over the fish of the sea and the birds and so on, we have to have dominion over our emotions. In other words, we have to have complete control over our emotions. There's a time and there's a place to express your emotions. And what has happened is that we have told people, hold it in, hold it in. Now realize that hypertension is one of the biggest killers of us as a people, because you have people that have unexpressed emotions that never express. Here is the thing, and write this down. You have to evaluate how you're going to express. And I'm going to deal with that in a second. You have to evaluate how you're going to express. And I say that because when it comes to our emotions, 3 of the biggest emotions that we possess as people, as humanity, are laughter, crying, and anger. These are the responses to life's situations. We laugh, we get mad, or we cry. Those are the 3 main. There's a plethora of them that we have, but we laugh, we get mad, and we cry. When something happens that's in our favor, that's flat out funny, the natural reaction is to laugh. For those that don't know me, y'all know I'm crazy. I love to laugh. I love to laugh because I have been in pain pretty much for so long in my life that now I said that my latter days will be filled with joy and laughter versus the pain that I had to deal with before. So when we talk about laughter, we know that if something happens, we laugh. Also, in the same token, when something breaks us, we cry. We get to the point where something has hurt our hearts and torn us into. And here's the thing, and I need you to catch this. There's nothing wrong with crying. We try to minimize people who cry, and we try to negate their feelings, push them in a corner. Well, you're crying, that's a sign of weakness. No, crying is a sign of strength, because crying is an expression. I'm expressing. But let's get back to the anger piece. When we enter into a situation, it touches our emotions and we have to display that anger. And it's in our display of our anger where we have to practice emotional control. Watch, because there's a way to get somebody straight without cussing and yelling. Hear me when I say this. There's a way to get people straight without cussing and yelling, because again, when you put yourself on display, your anger and your tears. Now, if you put your laughter on display, that's something that everyone could possibly relate to, because all you're doing literally is laughing. And people are like, oh my God, what's so funny? But when it comes to the anger and when it comes to the tears, you have to be careful, because when you do not know how to manage your anger or manage your tears, you can really become a source of collateral damage for people. And what I mean by that is, and more so for the anger, not the tears, one of my favorite movies of all time is Collateral Damage, by the same name. Arnold Schwarzenegger is at a pub outside in a foreign country. And what happens is that these terrorists bomb the area in which he, his wife, and his daughter are sitting. But the thing is, he's not in the blast area. He's outside of the blast area, walking back in. They're targeting someone else. But because they're targeting someone else, Arnold Schwarzenegger's wife and his daughter end up getting killed. In our anger and us not being able to control our anger, what can happen is that we can make other people collateral damage. And while we're cussing people out and giving them a piece of our mind, there's a 6-year-old child that's watching you cuss somebody out. So now the school's calling you. And in the school calling you, and they're saying, you know, your baby was cussing at people. And what, my baby, where did my baby get that? Baby got that from you. You have created collateral damage. And all of us have fallen into this where we've lost our temper. And that's the reality, because again, that's an old thing that we say, you know, I lost my temper. The question is, if you lost your temper, who gave it to you to lose? That's just a simple question that we all have to ponder. But so when we talk about expressing in our reactions, we express through laughter, we express through anger, and again, we express through tears. If you're hurting and you're broken and you're crying, it's really okay. What happens is that people who are empathetic to what you're going through are going to come and minister to you. So it's not necessarily a collateral damage piece, but it's a collateral gathering, because people who really sincerely care about you are literally going to come and see about you. Don't miss that. So when we talk about, being able to get to that next level in our emotions, when we talk about controlling our emotions, and write this down. I want to deliver this. I want to deliver this in the right way. Write this down. Managing your mouth begins with managing your mind. Let's say that. Managing your mouth begins with managing your mind. Have you ever, I'll raise my hand ahead of time. Have you ever gotten into a life situation where you said, I can't believe they did this to me? You wanted to cuss and you found yourself cussing. And after you cussed, you said, oh my God, I wasn't supposed to say that out loud. If you manage your mind, then you would not be able to do that out loud, because you have not managed your mind. It didn't slip out. It's what you wanted to say because your mind has not been managed. I'm saying this, you all, from personal experience. There are times where I want to completely go in, but I can't, because I learned emotional intelligence and control years ago. But I also realize that if I respond the way the enemy wants me to respond, someone's going to get hurt. So I've learned how to turn it over to the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit, guide my mind, guide my tongue, because I want to say some things, but I can't say those things because I might produce some collateral damage. So when we talk about managing your mouth by managing your mind, how do we do that? Number one, if you're writing, you have to evaluate the situation. You have to evaluate before you assassinate. evaluate the situation. So when you're pushed past the point of no return, when you're pushed past that point of, I cannot believe they did this to me, when you're pushed to that point where you're like, man, if one more person, you have to evaluate if response is worth it. There's a word that I teach preachers all over the country, and that's just a simple, long word, but it's a simple word: compartmentalize your mind. Compartmentalization suggests that I'm going to take what I find in order of importance. So if it's something that is not important to me, because I have compartmentalized my mind, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on the back burner because it's not worth addressing. Hear this, write this down. The biggest response is silence. Man, the biggest response that you could ever give somebody is silence. Here's why. Many people do what they do to you to get a response. So when we talk about emotional intelligence and emotional control, you really want to respond. But if you don't say anything, it is one of the most deafening but yet angering things to a person who's trying to attack you. Case in point, you're at work, someone parks in your space. Or excuse me, you park in someone else's space. You don't really realize what you're doing because you're on the phone in your car and you do it by accident. They get out of their car because you took their employee of the month space. They're screaming and yelling at the top. I cannot believe this, da da da. All you people, I'm sorry I did that. No, because y'all da da. I'm sorry. Sometimes silence and low tones changes an entire atmosphere. So when they walk away, they're like, I did all that cussing and I made myself look like a public display. And now that I've done all of that, I never cussed at them. I never yelled at them or anything. You know what? Let me come back and apologize. I'm not saying that everybody's going to apologize because people do dirty stuff to you. They know they're wrong, but they never apologize. That's life. That's the circle of life. And write this down. Write this down. If you're waiting on an apology, don't wait too long. If you're waiting on an apology, don't wait too long, because some people are determined to try to break you, and they know they've broken you and they know they owe you an apology, but you can't live your life in limbo waiting on their apology. They did what they did to you. They hurt you. They broke you. And now you feel, I got to get an apology. If I don't get an apology, then I'm da da da. No, no, no. When they left you and they did not apologize, they gave you permission to make it without them. Please don't miss that. They gave you permission to make it without them. But here's the thing. You have to evaluate whether or not you're going to respond. You have to look at your surroundings. You have to look at different things. There's a video that is viral right now, and it's actually on my Facebook and on my TikTok, of a young lady who's on a train. And the young lady who's on a train, there's a woman that is on the other side across from her who keeps kicking her and putting her feet in the seat. Now, the young lady sits in the seat. She asked the woman numerous times, could you please remove your feet? I can't give you the 4-letter words that she used, but some of those words were not Mark, Luke, John, or love. So she's telling the woman to move her feet. The woman begins to kick even more emphatically. I'm not telling you to be a pushover, because you do have to display emotional intelligence. But when situations arise where you know that you have to literally make a scene in order to get out of the scene, by all means, pray before you do. Ask God for guidance, because again, people will push you to that point, but it depends on the situation. So number one, evaluate. Number two, when you're dealing with emotional control, write this down. Decrease your immediate feelings. Man. Decrease your immediate feelings. Decrease, in other words, you hear people at the moment of anger, at the moment of emotional turmoil. I got a mind to decrease your immediate feelings, because what will happen is sometimes you'll write a check that you can't cash, you know the rest. Sometimes if you do not decrease your immediate feelings, you're going to do something in reaction. And every reaction causes, watch this, a reaction. So while you're cussing at people or trying to put your hands on people because they've hurt you or broke your heart, you don't know how that person is going to respond. So if you do not decrease what you're dealing with immediately, you're going to find yourself in a situation that you don't want to be in. Please do not miss that. Number one, evaluate the situation. Number two, decrease your immediate feelings. Number three, rethink how you should respond. Rethink how you should respond. You have to take the time to rethink how you should respond. Chances are, 95.5% chance is that your very first reaction that you want to give is not the reaction that you should give. The very first reaction that you want to give is not the reaction that you should give. Please don't miss that. Please don't miss that. So evaluate, decrease, rethink. And then here it is, the final one. Release it responsibly. Release it responsively. Responsibly, I'm sorry. When we talk about releasing responsibly, there's a way to get people right without yelling or causing a scene. There's a way to go off on people without going all the way in on people. I say that because when you release it the right way, and you give it over the right way, sometimes you decrease the chance of violence. Sometimes you decrease the chance of conflict, if you understand what I'm saying. So when we talk about releasing it the correct way and doing it the right way, what I mean by that is that the response that you give is a thin line of whether a relationship can be repaired. But again, how do you get people right without yelling, cussing, and screaming? Someone has said something to you that you do not necessarily agree with. Someone has said something to you that you may not have necessarily agreed with. So you have a choice. You can rise up, cuss them out, go off, and walk away talking to yourself. I can't believe that she said that. You can give them a piece of your mind. You can do whatever you want to do. Or you can get them correctly and releasing it the right way. So case in point of how I'm going to give you this. You good, Daddy? You good? Okay. So watch this. When you have been wrong, I told you I beat you. Okay, I get that. But here's how you get people right with that. Excuse me. You said some choice words to me a couple of weeks ago. And in the beginning, I was tripping, right? But after I took the time to really let it saturate in my mind, I thought about how you spoke to me. And what's crazy about this is that I would never disrespect you in that way. And because I would never disrespect you in that way, I'm requesting that you no longer disrespect me in that way. Because one thing about it, it's always good to be respectful. But here it is. I know how to be respectful until it's time for me to be disrespectful. See how that is? You can get someone right without the yell and without the extra. But what we do in the predominant African American community, we feel that we have an image to uphold. And because I have an image to uphold, I have to go off. I have to cuss. I have to go. No, no, no. You don't have to do any of that. You can go to somebody, release it the right way so you can move on. Because if you do not release the anger the right way, you're going to find yourself letting it marinate and saturate in your mind. And because it has marinated and saturated in your mind, now you feel the need to always be harping on it. Have you ever run into people that every time you run into them, they talking about the same stuff? He hurt me back in 1977. She did this back in 1982. Do you know how long ago that was? I'm saying that because you have to release and then release. Write that down, and I'm gonna dig deeper into that. You have to release. You have to release to release. You have to release to release. You go ahead and cough. You good. You have to release to release. So when we talk about releasing to release, that means that now that I have released and got it off of my chest, now I can release myself from the situation. How much longer are you going to be in bondage to the hands of people? How much longer are you going to be emotionally in bondage because of something that you should have said to them, but you told everybody except them? You literally told everybody except the person who you were supposed to tell. What happens when you don't get to the point where you are managing your emotions? What happens is that you end up cussing people out. Let's deal with the cussing piece and then I'm going to be done. Um, it is said, and it has been said, that a person who cusses all the time does not have the mentality to say what is required. I'm not trying to insult anybody. I'm just telling you that is a general rule of thumb. You in your mindset have to learn how not to cuss people all the way out. You want to cuss people out, but you can't. Please don't miss that. So why do people cuss? Okay, number one, some people cuss because they were raised that way. Rule number two, some people cuss not only because they were raised that way, but some people cuss because it is something that they've seen throughout their lives. Television, social media, and the list goes on and on and on. I'm saying this because we don't think that our cussing does anything to people. But here is the thing, and write this down. You can't draw back your words. You cannot draw back your words. And here's the thing about cussing. When we cuss and the words that we use, we're using words that really are not meant for that particular moment, but because we have been brainwashed as far as cussing, things of that nature, we think that by using these words that gets a point across. Prime example. I love comedians. I love comedians. And when we talk about comedians, if you notice, if you turn on most channels, the average comedian literally cusses every 30 to 40 to 60 seconds because they cuss to literally get the point across. I'm saying this because we have to get to the point again where we manage. Watch this. Not only our emotions, but also we manage our words. And when you manage your words, you're not conforming to the world, but you're conforming to what God is saying. So again, when we talk about being able to control your emotions, when we're talking about being able to control your mouth, you have to learn that there is a process. There is a process to controlling your emotions. Because here's the thing: when you control your emotions, it is a consistent sign of peace. Don't miss this. I'm almost done. When you are controlling your emotions, it is a consistent sign of peace. Let's go to Philippians chapter 4, verse 7. Watch what it says. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your heart and mind through Christ Jesus. Don't miss that. Don't miss that. So when it talks about the peace of God, many people are in emotional turmoil because they're not at peace. Do you have a family member who's always coming for you? Chances are they're not at peace. Do you have friends and family who are always coming at you in crazy ways because they're not at peace? Prime example, if you look on television and you look at social media, you notice how with LeBron James and other people who are celebrities, you can say that they've accomplished great things, but there's always somebody, they haven't done this. There are so many people that are walking around and they don't have peace. Peace helps you sleep at night. Peace helps you let things go. Peace helps you in the midnight hour when you want to do the wrong thing. I'm saying all of this because if we look at the climate of politics, if we look at the climate of society, if we look at the climate in prison, if we look at the climate of our everyday living, so many people are at war within themselves, where you have all of these random attacks. You have people that are getting shot for no reason, stabbed for no reason, killed for no reason, because you're dealing with people who do not have emotional control. You have to learn in controlling your emotions how to stay on track. First Kings chapter 19. I think First Kings chapter 19, verse 1 through 17. I'm gonna give you this story and then I'm done. First Kings chapter 19 gives you the story of Jezebel and Ahab. What happens is that the prophet goes and he kills all of the fake preachers. It's like 400 fake preachers. Me and my father and my sister were just talking about fake preachers a few minutes ago. Elijah calls fire down from heaven and kills 400 fake preachers. And what happens is that Ahab, who's the king, is being run by his woman, the queen, Jezebel. And Jezebel receives a message from Ahab about what Elijah has done. What Jezebel does is that she says, you know what, let me send him an open letter. She sends an open letter. She says, by the time, this time tomorrow, you're going to be dead. Watch, because he does not have emotional control. Elijah flees. He runs away. The queen says, this time tomorrow, you're going to be dead. And because he does not realize who he serves, and doesn't realize that he's losing his control emotionally, he runs away. And watch how crazy it is. This is what I mean by getting you off track, dealing with your emotions. He goes and he sits up under a tree and he says, God, I've done everything that you've asked me to do. I need you to kill me because I'm no worthier than my forefathers. Wait a minute. If you ran under a tree and you said, God, I need you to kill me, guess what? You could have died back with Jezebel. You see, when you don't control your emotions, you'll find yourself making irrational decisions that make absolutely no sense. He runs from Jezebel because she says, I'm going to kill you. Now he goes under a tree and says, God, I don't want her to kill me. I want you to kill me. How crazy does that sound? So what he does is he runs into a cave. And the Bible says when he runs into the cave that the wind is in the cave, but God is not in the wind. The lightning strikes, there's no lightning. The God is not in the lightning. The thunder roars, God is not in the thunder. But then after all of that passes, there's a still small voice. After the emotional experience, after the wind, after the rain, after the thunder, now God talks to him in a small voice. And sometimes When you don't have peace, storms can be raging in your life and you'll never hear from God because you've got internal turmoil. But if you ever get to a point of peace where you shut up everything else around you, you got to cut off your phone sometimes. You have to cut off your television. You have to stop talking to people and learn how to find inner peace. God says, Elijah, what are you doing here? He says, I served you and I did everything you asked me to do. He says, what are you doing here? All of the people that came before me did great works. What are you doing here? He's saying, I put so much in you to where now you're in a place that you're not even supposed to be. Who am I talking to right now? You're in a place that you should not be because you did not control your emotions and manage your emotions. If Elijah had managed his emotions, he would have said, wait a minute, I just killed 400 fake people through the power of God. If I can go through 400 people with lightning and fire, surely I can go through a wicked queen. He got off track because he did not have emotional dominion. When you learn emotional dominion, you're going to go through less stress. When you learn emotional dominion, all of the stuff that used to bother you will no longer bother you. When you learn emotional dominion, people will come and go. And again, I say this before, God is the biggest hitman on the planet. Stop worrying about what they did and learn how to find inner peace. Stop worrying about what they said and learn how to find inner peace. When you learn to find inner peace, the emotional control will come. Write this down. Very famous song by a famous group. The group In Vogue came out in the 90s with a song. And the title of the song was Free Your Mind and the Rest Will Follow. Once your mind is free, you'll stop getting mad over silly stuff. Once your mind is free, you'll stop focusing on stuff. Once your mind is free, you'll stop majoring on minor people and majoring on minor situations. Hey, listen, I love you all. I will see you all on Sunday morning. God bless.